You can do the three of you.
Técnico está trabajando, entonces mientras trabaja, pues.
Selfie.
I don't
Oh,
know.
wait, this actually requires me to actually know how to hold the phone. Oh, look, kids. You do that way.
Yeah. Oh, you don't need me.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, let's see.
Okay, let me count up.
I thought you didn't see.
Come on.
I'm still young enough to do this.
My window of being a good picture is quickly closing. Girls.
Do you want me to just use that?
Oh, there it goes. It's right to go forward and slide, back to go back and slide.
I'm going first. Wow. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabella Izzy Allison. I am a freshman here at NKU. I'm studying French and I'm also studying theater and creative writing. So the arts are my life, basically. So for me personally, this event is a great way to mesh two things I love, which is foreign language and writing. So the poem I will be sharing with you all today is Ode de Cassandra, which is a poem written by Pierre de Ronsard. That's my term right there. He lived from 1524 to 1585. He was a very well-renowned poet in his generation. He was called the Prince of Poets, actually. And rumor has it he actually wrote for royalty, so that's pretty high up. And this poem was written in 1553. So I think he was in like his late 20s. I'm bad at math, but and the reason why I chose this poem and why it stuck out to me so much is the fact that the sentiments and the themes expressed inside this poem are still very much prevalent in today's society, even though it was written all these centuries ago. So I just think that is so awesome. So this poem was written for Cassandra Salviati, who was the daughter of an Italian baker. And basically this poem is meant to be an ode, and an ode is basically like something that's set to music. So I don't have any music with me, but and yeah, a few notes before I get started. So this poem is written in Middle French, which was the main form of French used from the 14th to 16th century. And the Middle French that will be in this poem, I put in italics. So basically the spelling is a little bit different nowadays. And one word that is prevalent in this poem is mignon. And basically it was kind of, from what I understand, it was a term of endearment back in the day. But the modern translation is charming, graceful, petite, cute, etc. So, okay. That did not format correctly, but okay. Do you want me to fix it or?
If you want, then you can go on ahead unless someone.
Okay, that's fine. Does anyone really want to see the English all the way or?
Read it.
Okay, all right. Okay. Mignon. À l'envoi si la rose qui ce matin a voix d'éclose, sa robe de pourpre au soleil, a point perdu ses esprits, les plis de sa robe pourpre et son teint à votre par elle. Là, voyez comme un pot d'espace mignon, et là-dessus la place, les saboter la séchoir. Oh, vraiment, marate nature, puis qu'une tes fleurs nous dure, que du matin jusqu'à soir. Donc, si vous me croyez mignon, tandis que votre âge fleuron, en sa plus verte nouveauté, cueillez votre chenus, comme à cette fleur la vieillesse fera ternir votre beauté. So basically that entire poem, if you all could read the English translation, was basically saying that basically flowers do not compare to you and flowers will wither and you will too someday, so let's just enjoy this moment while we have it. And historical records don't exactly show whether or not Cassandra actually liked this poem and this gesture, but nevertheless, this is a really great piece of art that I am glad has lived on to this day for us to experience and cherish in this moment. Thank you.
poem in the bar lineup is, it's on the screen. So.
Excelente selección.
Gracias. De acuerdo.
Bueno, tanto el poeta como el poema.
I think it's just.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay, well, that's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm downloading my.
It's fine.
I'm sorry.
All right. The poem I chose is Masa, which translates to masses in English, which is a poem written by Cesar Vallejo. And I'll just read it first and then say my analysis and the historical background of it after. All right. Al fin de la batalla, y muerto el que me tiene, vino hacia él un hombre y le dijo, no mueras, te amo tanto, pero el cadáver ay, siguió muriendo. Se le acercaron dos y repitieronle, no nos dejes, valor, vuelve a la vida, pero el cadáver ay, siguió muriendo. Acudieron a él 20, 100,000, 500,000, clamando, tanto amor y no poder nada contra la muerte, pero el cadáver ay, siguió muriendo. Le rodearon millones de individuos con un ruego común, quédate, quédate, hermano, pero el cadáver ay, siguió muriendo. Entonces, todos los hombres de la tierra le rodearon, le vio el cadáver triste, emocionando, incorporóse lentamente, abrazó al primer hombre y echóse a andar. All right. Oh, yeah, right. So that was written by Cesar Vallejo, and he was a Peruvian poet and novelist who made a name for himself as a poet when he was in Europe, which was later in his life because he died in 1938 at the age of 46. And his most prolific work was published posthumously, which was about a year after he died. And he lived his last life, or he lived his last years in Europe. And he was very emotionally invested in the Spanish Civil War, which was at its peak during that time. And he was greatly affected by the mass death that he saw. This poem was featured in one of his posthumous poetry collections titled España aparte de mí este cáliz, which means Spain, take this chalice from me, where he wrote poems basically like protesting the role of General Francisco Franco, which if you don't know, he was the dictator who led Spanish nationalists during the Spanish Civil War. And in the same book, he has this message of the triumph of mankind. In this poem, he conveys that 10, 20, 50, thousands, millions of people being anti-war cannot in itself stop war or bring people back to life. However, it requires the entirety of humanity to come together and resist the powers that be that compel us towards war. And such a blatant anti-war stance was pretty radical. It's pretty standard to us, right? But given the time period, it was between world wars, a lot of political strife in Europe, in the middle of the Spanish Civil War. So it was pretty, kind of out there to have such a staunch anti-war stance. And after his death, many critics commended him for taking such a brave and optimistic opposition to war and violence. So.
I put yours onto a slide, if that's okay.
Nice.
I tried to pick one that matched the. Tried to match.
Hello, my name is Nancy. I'm a retired faculty member from the Department of World Language and Literatures. And thank you for inviting me, Adam, to come and read. This just all happened today. So I did kind of look for a published poem that I could find both German and English that I wanted to read, but I couldn't find anything. So I'm going to use one of my own poems, and I'll read both because the poem was originally written in English, and then I recently translated it for a friend of mine's birthday. She has a birthday in the spring. And so I can talk just a little bit about some of the things that were difficult, more difficult than I had expected in the translation, because I had gone through my poems to find one to translate for her and thought, oh, this is, pretty straightforward. This shouldn't give me too much trouble to translate, but there were some issues that were interesting, I think. So I'll start with the English, because that's the original. So it's called Impatience. Crocuses wake purple, stretch and yawn. Petal cups fill with sun's vigor. Colors cavort and counterpoint under time-bleached leaves. Daffodils follow, tumbling with tulips and giddy hyacinths onto a quilted counterpane of April's violets. And the German, the title Ungeduld is directly translated, that's Impatience. So Ungeduld. Krokusse erwachen lila, regeln sich und gähnen. Blumenblattbecher sonnen sich satt. Farben feiern feucht fröhlich unter winterbleichen Blättern. Osterglocken folgen. Turnen mit bunten Tulpen und beschwipsten Hyazinthen. Kullern kühn ins Reich der Maifeilchen. So, couple of things here. In my original poem, the main thing that I wanted to express was kind of a somersaulting of flowers as the spring begins. And so I wanted it to move quickly, ending up with the quilted counterpane. But one of the things that ended up happening was that in using certain sounds, it's a little bit unusual for me to use alliteration. I usually use a little more assonance than alliteration, and I'll show you that in a German poem. But in this English poem, I ended up with these C's and P's, and the crocus's purple counterpoint, counterpane, and that ended up being something I couldn't replicate in the German, but I used other kind of sound techniques to sort of try to tie that together. So what I had to change over here, number of things. I used, as you can, well, here, the colors cavort and counterpoint. I was able to get that alliteration in the German as well, Farben feiern feucht fröhlich. Used a lot of assonance, so regeln and sich gähnen, Osterglocken folgen, and turnen mit bunten Tulpen. So I was able to do that, but I had to really change the ending of it because it just didn't work. I couldn't get the quilted counterpane in there at all. So I changed it to these flowers just falling down, kind of bravely isn't a good word, but just very assuredly into the kingdom of the Maifeilchen, which are May violets. So I even had to change it from April to May because I got more of the essence here with the Reich and Maifeilchen. The other kind of interesting thing for the language students, I think, in this was in German, nouns are capitalized. In my poem over here, I don't use any punctuation at all, but new sentences are indicated by capital letter. Well, that wasn't going to work over here because it would have been ambiguous. Is this a noun or is this the beginning of a sentence? So that's why I chose then just something as simple as adding the period so that you would be able to see where the sentences ended. So I think that's pretty much all I want to say. But so it was an interesting exercise, and my friend liked it, although she sent me back her own version. She'd never seen this, but she wanted a poem that rhymed. So she sent me back kind of a variation of this that rhymed. So that was an interesting little back and forth we had. Thank you. And I guess I don't get any extra credit because I didn't have a nice PowerPoint.
No, actually, everyone here is doing it for the sake of poetry,
Oh,
isn't it?
I should have known.
I'm not getting any extra credit that I know of.
I don't know, there's not a podium for me to hide behind. Okay, I have never used the clicker. How does that work? Do I just hit?
The right arrow takes you one slide.
Okay,
forward, one
thank
arrow to
you.
one slide back.
My poem, I think he's heavy, which I did this PowerPoint. Oh, yes, I did this PowerPoint similar in Dr. Raymer's class. It was
Phonetics.
the phonetics class, yep. So it's called Aux Beaux Yeux Blancs. And Louise Bay was born in 1524 in Lyon, France, and she died in 1566. She didn't have a very long life, but I guess that was expected during that time period. So this sonnet that I'm going to read is from Oeuvre Poétique, and she published it. It was published in 1555. Here it is in French, but I didn't do the putting it right next to the English like everyone else cleverly did. So I'm just going to put it in the English when I read the French. Aux beaux yeux blancs, au regard détourné, aux chauds soupirs, aux larmes épandues, aux noirs nuits vainement attendus, aux jours luisants vainement prétournés, aux tristes plans, aux désirs obstinés, aux temps perdus, aux peines dépendues, aux mille mots en mille répandus, aux pires mots contre moi destinés. Au riz, au fond, cheveux, bras, mains et doigts, au doute plaintif, viol, archer et voix. Tant de flambeaux dorâtres, une femelle. Et toi, mes blancs, qui tend des feux pourpants, entend ton doigt sur mon cœur t'attend. N'est sur toi voler quelque étincelle. So basically what she's saying in this poem, the feeling I felt was that she's still hung up on the gentleman that doesn't seem to really care about her anymore. So, but I didn't put a little a slide for it. And I think, yeah, that's just.
This. Okay.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm a sophomore year here, and I study sociology and statistics. And I've been learning French for as long as I can remember, basically. I love this language. My poem is "Es-tu brune ou blonde?" and it's written by Paul Verlaine. He was born in 1844 in Metz, France, and died in 1896 in Paris. And he started writing poems because he was influenced by the Parnassian movement, and at age 14, so it's pretty young. And I just have it in English. I am sorry, it's not in French as well. I'll read it in French first. So the title of the piece is Are You Brunette or Blonde? Es-tu brune ou blonde? Sont-ils noirs ou bleus tes yeux? Je n'en sais rien, mais j'aime leur clarté profonde. Mais j'adore le désordre de tes cheveux. Es-tu douce ou dure? Es-tu sensible au mon cœur, ton cœur? Je n'en sais rien, mais j'aime prendre grâce à la nature. D'avoir fait de ton cœur mon maître et mon vainqueur, fidèle, infidèle, qu'est-ce que ça fait? Au fait, puisque toujours disposé à couronner nos ailes, ta beauté seule dégage mon plus cher souhait. And I like this poem because he's talking about someone and he doesn't care like what she looks like basically, and basically about her past as well, like, you know, what shaped her. He'll love her for whoever she is. And yes, that's all.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je vous présente un poème d'Arthur Rimbaud et le titre c'est Le dormeur du Val. It's interesting that we just heard a poem by Paul Verlaine, read by Leah, and Arthur Rimbaud, he's his compatriot and also, by the way, his lover. So he had a very, Arthur Rimbaud had a very, very turbulent life, both poetically and personally. Oh, I went the wrong way. Count on me to mess up this. So I just wanted to put first, I'm sorry, I'm going back no. Here, I just want to point out Le Dormeur du Val was written in 1870, actually published in 1870, and Rimbaud was 16 years old. It's interesting that Léa, you mentioned Paul Verlaine started writing at 14 years old. So that was at age 16. So some quick facts. Arthur Rimbaud was truly a child prodigy. He just like the Mozart, you know, in music. He was absolutely, he astonished his teachers by his talent, his knowledge. He could write poetry in all kinds of versification in primary school. He wrote Latin poems. And so just, I mean, amazed really, truly everyone by his brilliance. He definitely was a rebel pretty much all his life. Against traditional ethics and against the bourgeois order of his town of Charleville, pardon, which is in the northern east of France. He ran away from home many times. His father abandoned the family actually, both the kids and the mother, when he was 5. And he was very traumatized by this abandonment. And he really, from the little I know about Rimbaud, he really hid very much his rebellion and his dislike of the bourgeois life. And no one, everyone knew about the child prodigy, but no one really understood what was going on inside the child. So he, starting in his teenage years, he started running away from home, but every time he was getting back. No matter what, Rimbaud is just like Paul Verlaine. I mean, Rimbaud has left an incredible legacy to his contemporaries and to every poet who came after him. He especially influenced the surrealists in the 20th century, but I think every writer has read Rimbaud. And the poem that I'm going to read for you, Le Dormeur du Val, which is the sleeper in the valley, does not really reflect exactly that bold experimentation that Rimbaud did. He basically wrote everything that we know of that is poetic between the age of 16 and barely 21. And the production is incredible. This early poem in 1870 is still pretty much according to, it's a sonnet, and it's written in Alexandrine, which is 12 syllable verses. You will notice maybe what we call enchantment, so the throwing to the next line a word or a verb or an adjective to put emphasis in it. But again, this is not reflecting what it will come up the following year, which is incredible. Also interested and relevant to this poem is that 16-year-old Rimbaud wrote Le Dormeur du Val, the sleeper in the valley, in 1870 when France was at war with Prussia, a few miles from his hometown of Charleville in northeastern France. And I don't know, but it is quite possible that actually Rimbaud came upon that scene because he traveled on foot and he ran away from home very often. So the poem, interestingly, I think there is fortunately, we had some lighter poems, but this is about war. I chose this poem because I think we are all so impacted by war all over the world. And of course, right now, we're very focused on Ukraine. And also, we all realize, I think, the absurdity of war, how many innocent people have died, civilians, children. It's terrible. And I don't want to do a spoiler alert, so maybe I'll tell you a little more after I read the poem. Is it to the right? Okay. I'm sorry, you're missing the first, the first letter. It's okay, you're gonna be okay with that. I'm not, but okay, all right. Le dormeur du Val. C'est un trou de verdure où chante une rivière, accrochant follement aux herbes des haillons d'argent. Où le soleil de la montagne fière, lui, c'est un petit Val qui mousse de rayons. Un soldat jeune, bouche ouverte, tête nue, et la nuque baignant dans le frais cresson bleu, dort. Il est étendu dans l'herbe, sous la nue, pâle dans son lit vert où la lumière pleut. Les pieds dans les glaïeuls, il dort, souriant, comme sourirait un enfant malade. Il fait un somme. Nature, berce-le chaudement. Il a froid. Les parfums ne font pas frissonner sa narine. Il dort dans le soleil, la main sur sa poitrine, tranquille. Il a 2 trous rouges au côté droit. So the poem is, you notice all the enjambments like lui and pâle and so on. And it starts by a very soothing nature scene of the river that put some silvery, trickles on the grass, something tranquil. But we also have this little premonition, pâle, pale, froid, cold. And then we know it's a soldier. And then at the end, il a deux trous rouges au côté droit. He has 2 bullets in his right side. So I think this poem shows the loss of innocence through war and just the absurdity of the whole thing. So thank you. Let's see. Oh, Federico Garcia.
Hopefully my PowerPoint, one single slide PowerPoint makes up for lack of much background information. This is a poem, Canción del Jinete, Horseman's Song. And it's interesting because we started with an ode, so something that's a song of sorts, and we're back to a song, Canción. And I thought it was interesting that you did Vallejo, who was hanging out in España during the Spanish Civil War. And more or less, I mean, they're generally contemporaries with each other. And Lorca himself was a victim of the fascists / nationalists, the forces of Francisco Franco, with whom I share a birthday. And so, yeah, he was shot to death by the fascist forces, but he wrote lots of beautiful poetry, and just lots of like very simple imagery, nature imagery in this one. So that's also interesting to, parallel with the poem that Professor Gensch read. And I don't think I have anything else more to say about it except to read it. Córdoba, lejana y sola, jaca negra, luna grande y aceitunas y mi alforja. Aunque sepa los caminos, yo nunca llegaré a Córdoba. Por el llano, por el viento, jaca negra, luna roja, la muerte me está mirando desde las torres de Córdoba. Ay, qué camino tan largo, ay, mi jaca dolorosa, ay, que la muerte me espera antes de llegar a Córdoba. Córdoba, lejana y sola. And I guess we're here with death again, too.
There you go. I realize now I can't stand directly in front of this, can I? Okay. There we go. I'm Adam Wiley, president or chancellor of the German Club, as you probably you know me already. So I'm a senior here, and the poem I chose to share today is Der Erlkönig. This poem was written by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. It was written in 1782. Goethe lived from about 1749, not about, he lived from 1749 to 1832. He wrote this during a literary period in Germany known as the Sturm und Drang. don't think it was just limited to literature, but also into art and music as well. It was sort of a precursor to the proper romantic period. Sturm und Drang is usually translated in English as storm and stress. Drang actually means more like urge or desire. So it was a movement that was really meant to push against, almost as a reaction to the Enlightenment and sort of the pure sort of rational type of thinking and literature that came with that time, and sort of draw back on from earlier more medieval or concepts or ideas. The Erlkönig is ultimately based off of a actually Scandinavian piece of folklore known as the Elveskud. Not sure if I pronounced that right. I am not a Danish student. It was originally, the legend itself was originally translated into a work by Johann Gottfried von Höder as the Erlkönigstochter, the Earl King's daughter. They believe this, some say this was a mistranslation because Elveskud is an elf. Elvis is like elves. But Erl actually is Erle, the German word for an alder tree. So some think this was just an accidental mistranslation. Others believe it was more to upplay sort of the woodsy, out in the forest nature feel, which is what is displayed in the Erlkönig when Goethe wrote this poem. He just made the subject of the poem the Earl King itself. The Erlkönigstochter was about the daughter of the Earl King luring a man, trying to lure a man away in the forest, and the man ultimately dies after being cursed by her. The Erlkönig is specifically about the Earl King. It's not really any description of what the Earl King looks like. It's just sort of left this mysterious, sort of almost ghost-like haunted figure. I usually like this poem, sort of fits around Halloween in my opinion. But in this poem, it's the Earl King, a father riding through the forest with his son, and his son is being spoken to by this Erlkönig, which the father cannot hear or see. And the child is constantly asking the father, don't you hear him? Don't you see him? And the father is just trying to play it off, like, no, it's just the mist, or it's just the wind and the leaves. And then the ending I won't spoil, but it is sort of it is a ballad. It's a story. It tells a short story. There is dialogue. I believe there's 8 stanzas. The first and the last stanza are sort of the opening, closing narrations of this short story. And then in between there, you have the 3 sort of characters speaking. You have the father, the son, and then the Erlkönig. And with that, I will go ahead and begin and do the reading itself. Wer reitet so spät durch Nacht und Wind? Es ist der Vater mit seinem Kind. Hat den Knaben wohl in dem Arm. Fasst ihn sicher, hält ihn warm. Mein Sohn, was birgst du so bang dein Gesicht? Siehst Vater du den Erlkönig nicht? Den Erlenkönig mit Kron und Schweif. Mein Sohn, es ist ein Nebelstreif. Du liebes Kind, komm, geh mit mir. Gar schöne Spiele spiel ich mit dir. Manch bunte Blumen sind an dem Strand. Meine Mutter hat manch gülden Gewand. Mein Vater, und hörest du nicht, was Erlenkönig mir leise verspricht? Sei ruhig, bleib ruhig, mein Kind. In dürren Blättern säuselt der Wind. Willst, feiner Knabe, du mit mir gehen? Meine Töchter sollen dich warten stehen. Meine Töchter führen den nächtlichen Rhein und wiegen und tanzen und singen dich ein. Mein Vater, und siehst du nicht dort, Erlkönigstochter am düstern Ort? Mein Sohn, ich sehe es genau. Es scheinen die alten Weiden so grau. Ich liebe dich, mich reizt deine schöne Gestalt. Und bist du nicht willig, so brauche ich Gewalt. Mein Vater, jetzt fasst er mich an. El König hat mir ein Leid getan. Dem Vater grausit's, er reitet geschwind. Er hält in Armen das ächzende Kind. Er reicht den Hof mit Mühe und Not. In seinen Armen das Kind war tot. I'm not sure how well I portrayed it, but Ramos was saying that when Goethe wrote the poem, he tried to sort of emulate have the cadence sort of emulate the galloping of a horse. Which when the poem was put to music by Franz Schubert in 1815, he was only like 17 or 18 years old then, so make me feel bad. Everyone feel bad. He put it to music, and there you can really tell I won't play it for time's sake. But if you search online for just the König, the first thing that's usually going to come up is the video, and I do recommend listening to it because the way the different voices are differentiated in the music, and how the piano, I'm not a music person, but how the piano sort of emulates the rushed and hurriedness of a galloping horse is very interesting. And with that, I believe I made all of my points.
I just have to pipe in again, like how there's been different like threads running through these poems, because I had the solitary rider on the horse, and you have, the father and the son galloping on the horse, and also Canción del Jinete, Horseman Song, has been set to music numerous times by different people, and I was thinking of playing a clip, but I didn't bother to.
You have 10 minutes left if you'd like to.
Yeah, no, gracias, danke, nein.
And the story that ends with the child does die at the end. Alrighty, well, did we miss anyone? We missed someone, oh my goodness.
We missed someone.
Ich weiß nicht, wie das passiert ist. Okay. I not have yours downloaded here somewhere? One second, let me just look on my emails. You can come up here if you like.
You asked my name before, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I did have you. I know I got your.
He was like between I have to run the show and I have to perform, and like that's when information enters your brain and leaves it immediately. I know that from experience.
HPRINE. I downloaded. I must have just somehow got it over.
And maybe
I was gonna say, I thought we had another fancy poem in there.
Okay, so my poem's titled Primavera, or Spring, and it's funny because it goes along with hers as well. But it was written by Pablo Neruda. He was from Chile, and he started writing poetry when he was 13. He was very diplomatically involved throughout his life, so he traveled around a lot. And he later went on to win a Nobel Prize for his work. And a lot of his work was translated into English, so it's pretty popular. El pájaro ha venido a dar la luz, de cada trino suyo nace el agua, y entre agua y luz que el aire desarrolla, ya está la primavera inaugurada, ya sabe la semilla que ha crecido, la raíz se retrata en la corola, se abren por fin los barbados de polen. Todo lo hizo un pájaro sencillo desde una rama verde. And I just thought that it was kind of cool because it's spring right now. And I think that we see a lot of these things in our day-to-day lives and we don't really think about them and we kind of just walk past them, but I think it's nice to think about them more in depth every once in a while.
It's nice that I forgot because this way we don't end on death.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought too. That's perfect. Everything just fit together perfectly. Yes, yes, just lovely.
Alrighty. Did I miss anyone else?
Yes, before everybody goes shuffling out of the room.
I think we're good. Tracy didn't have anything right? Okay. We're good.
She was here representing the audience.
Yes. One of our, yeah, I was supposed to say like one of our two representatives of an audience.
Oh, yes, yes, we have a professor representing and a student representing
Oh,
as members of the audience.
And Ashley, Ashley.
Oh, and Ashley, dang, Ashley, sorry.
I'm not sure. We always do. I just. Yeah, they're like signs, like, I think pretty much at this point, everyone who has like how the classification is already like.
This was very nice.
I'm not sure we can do that.
This was very nice.
Oh,
Yeah, it was very nice, really, very, very nice, yeah. Thank you everyone for participating. It was really, really nice.
Great way to spend the end of National Poetry Month.
Yes.
oh, más largo.
Thank you so much for doing this last minute.
Yes. No, es que como te dije, yo quería leer romance sonámbulo and I go back and I'm like, oh, wait, oh, that goes on and on and on. Verde, que te quiero verde. No, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, that was perfect. Because I was a little worried because we had gone like a few people from French and a few people from Spanish, but then no one else was really volunteering
Yeah.
for German, so. Yeah, I figured just might as well go for the. I don't know, I see as like the sort of almost like a little bit of a cop out, just like the one poem that I think every German student will like remember if they took in high school or college or either, but
Text like fixed. Oh, but it was fine, because we could still, follow along, so it was very nice. And yes, making sure, the website. That if someone who looks like it, but can't decide if it's your person has